fit-quick schemes, those ones that promise the world and deliver, well, not so much.
Right, like those lose 10 pounds in 10 minutes things.
Exactly. We're diving into a book that takes a different approach. Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh, I've heard of that. It's about, like, making small changes.
Right. You got it.
Yeah.
We're on a mission to uncover how those tiny tweaks, those seemingly insignificant shifts in our routines, can lead to some pretty remarkable results.
It's so easy to get caught up in wanting that overnight success, the
Yeah.
big grand gesture that's going to change everything.
Right, like winning the lottery or something.
Exactly. But real lasting change, the kind that sticks with you, that usually takes a bit longer. It's like building something really solid, brick by brick.
It's about consistency and those small, almost invisible efforts, right?
You nailed it. And speaking of impact, there's this story about British cycling that Clear kicks off his book with that just blew my mind.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the deal with British cycling?
So for ages, they were basically a non-factor in the cycling world, or like nobody even considered them serious contenders.
Okay.
And then boom, they completely turned things around and ended up dominating the competition. And get this, their secret weapon wasn't some crazy new training program or some high-tech gear.
What was it then? Some kind of super secret diet?
Nope. It was this radical idea of simply trying to get 1% better every single day.
1%. That seems kind of small, doesn't it?
That's what I thought, but trust me, it's a fascinating story. For decades, British cycling was stuck in a rut of mediocrity, like they were just going through the motions. But when they brought in a new performance director, this guy named Dave Brailsford, everything changed.
What did this Brailsford guy do differently?
He had this unshakable belief in the power of, get this, aggregating marginal gains.
Aggregating marginal gains. Sounds complicated.
It's simpler than it sounds. Basically, he was obsessed with finding those tiny 1% improvements in every single thing they did.
So they weren't just focused on, like, pedaling faster or the latest aerodynamic gear.
Sure, they paid attention to all that stuff. I mean, you can't ignore the basics, right? But they took a much broader approach. They were scrutinizing everything, like they redesigned their bike seats for optimal comfort.
Really? They were worried about comfy bums.
Hey, when you're on a bike for hours on end, comfort is key. And that's not all. They hunted down tires with a better grip, for those tight turns. They even went so far as to test different fabrics in a wind tunnel.
A wind tunnel? What for?
To find the most aerodynamic materials for their racing suits, they were leaving no stone unturned.
Okay, so that's the kind of meticulous attention to detail you'd expect from, a top-tier sports team. But they didn't stop there, did they?
No way. They were just getting started. They really dug into the nitty-gritty, like those tiny details most people wouldn't even think about. They were testing different massage gels to see if they could shave off a few seconds during muscle recovery time.
Wow, every second counts, huh?
You bet. And it gets even better. They even brought in a surgeon.
A surgeon? What on earth for?
To teach the team the best hand-washing techniques. They wanted to prevent anyone from getting sick, even a common cold. And hold on, this is my favorite part. They even got all scientific about figuring out the best pillows and mattresses for each rider.
They were focused on sleep.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Absolutely. They wanted to optimize every aspect of their performance, and that includes getting a good night's sleep. They even went as far as to paint the inside of the team truck white.
Hold on, the team truck. Why white?
Because it made it easier to spot any tiny dust particles that might affect the bike's performance. I'm telling you, they were obsessed with the details.
It's like they were creating this whole culture of improvement, huh? Like, even the smallest thing mattered. Okay, but did this obsession with this seemingly insignificant actually translate into tangible results?
Oh, you better believe it. The results were undeniable. In just 5 years, this team that nobody had even heard of went on to absolutely dominate at the 2008 Olympics.
No way. Really?
Yeah. They took home a ridiculous number of medals, like something crazy, 60% of the gold medals.
That's insane. So it actually worked.
It wasn't just a fluke either. They kept up this incredible run, smashing records left and right, and establishing themselves as the team to beat in the cycling world. They basically rewrote the book on how to achieve success in their sport.
Okay, but how much of it was really those small changes adding up? Maybe they just lucked out and got a group of incredibly talented athletes.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's easy to dismiss it all and say, well, yeah, they were just naturally gifted athletes. But here's the thing. They weren't just relying on raw talent. They were intentional about creating a system that maximized that talent.
So it's the system, the way they approach those small improvements that made all the difference.
Exactly. They believed that those tiny changes, when applied consistently over time, could create extraordinary results. And you know what? They were right.
So it's not just about raw talent, huh? It's about having a system in place, a way to make that talent really shine. Like they say, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
So true.
But, what I find really intriguing here is this whole concept that all those small changes, those 1% improvements,
Hmm.
can actually add up to something much bigger. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, isn't it?
It's the power of compounding.
Compounding, like what you get with interest.
Exactly. It's a force that's often underestimated, but man, is it powerful. Clear, he compares it to, how compound interest works.
Okay, I'm listening. So instead of money multiplying in your bank account,
Mhm.
it's your habits, those tiny improvements that are earning interest.
You got it. And that interest, those gains, they grow exponentially over time.
Okay, now you're just using big words. Break it down for me.
Let's say, for instance, you could improve by a measly 1% each day for a whole year.
Okay, 1% a day.
At the end of that year, you wouldn't be just 365% better because of the compounding. Nope. The cumulative effect, all those little gains, would make you almost 38 times better than you were at the start.
Wait, 38 times? Are you serious? That's wild. And here I am, always looking for those quick fixes, those lose 10 pounds in 10 minutes gimmicks.
But we've all been there. We want that instant transformation.
When in reality, real change, the kind that lasts, it's more like, slow and steady wins the race.
It's about those small steps, taken consistently, day after day. Just like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
I've always loved that quote, but here's the thing. As much as I love the idea of positive habits compounding, it kind of makes me think, like, what about those negative ones? The bad habits we all have.
Ah, you're hitting on a crucial point. Because just like those good habits compound, those negative ones do too. It's the flip side of the same coin, really.
So those little 1% slip-ups, those I'll just skip the gym today moments, they can add up too.
Big time. If you're not careful, those tiny declines, those seemingly insignificant choices, they can snowball over time and lead to, well, let's just say, not where you want to be.
Okay, that's a little scary, but a good reality check. Like, if I keep making excuses to skip the gym, eventually I'm going to lose all my progress.
Exactly. We often underestimate how much power those small choices have, those tiny decisions we make each and every day.
It's easy to forget that those little things matter.
But as James Clear reminds us, success is the product of daily habits, not those once-in-a-blue-moon transformations.
Those daily habits, they really do make all the difference, don't they? But, okay, I got to be honest with you. I often struggle with staying motivated, especially when I don't see those immediate results, like I'm putting in the work, trying to make those 1% improvements, but feels like nothing's changing.
You're preaching to the choir. Staying motivated, especially when you're not seeing those quick wins, that's a challenge we all face. It's one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to forming new habits.
So how do we overcome that?
Well, James Clear, he talks about this thing called the plateau of latent potential. It's this idea that,
Plateau of latent potential. Sounds familiar, but remind me.
okay, picture this. You've got an ice cube, right? And it's sitting there, slowly melting. What happens at first?
Not much. It's just kind of there.
Exactly. You don't see any big changes right away. You might even think the heat isn't affecting it at all.
But it is, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The energy, the heat, it's being absorbed by the ice, slowly raising its temperature, and then boom, you hit that crucial point, that 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and suddenly the ice melts.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this. So
Sure.
the ice cube and those 1% improvements, they're like that gradual increase in temperature.
Precisely. And that's where a lot of people throw in the towel. They hit that point where it seems like nothing's happening, no visible change, and they assume it's not working. They think their efforts are pointless because they're not seeing immediate results.
They get discouraged. I get it.
But the thing is, they're usually right on the verge of a breakthrough. Just like that ice cube that's about to melt, all that effort they've been putting in, it's not wasted. It's all building up to something amazing.
It's like, what's that saying? The darkest hour is just before the dawn. You're so close to seeing the results of your hard work, but you give up right before the magic happens.
It's a classic story, and it happens all the time. And it's really a shame because those early efforts, even if they don't produce immediate Instagram-worthy results, they're still essential.
They're the foundation.
Exactly. They're like that strong foundation you need for a skyscraper. You might not see it above ground, but without it, the whole thing crumbles.
This is really giving me a new way to think about those times when I feel like giving up. It's like, okay, maybe I'm just on a plateau building up to something great.
Exactly. Consistency is key, even when you feel like you're not making any progress. Trust the process.
Easier said than done some days, but I hear you. So, how do we push through those plateaus, those moments when we feel stuck? How do we stay motivated when we're in what Clear calls what was it again, the valley of disappointment?
Ah, yes, the dreaded valley of disappointment. That's where understanding the difference between goals and systems becomes crucial.
Goals versus systems.
Because, let's be real, relying on willpower alone, on just feeling motivated all the time, that's a recipe for disaster. Willpower, it's fickle, it comes and goes.
So, if relying on willpower is kind of a losing battle, what's the alternative? What's a more, I don't know, reliable approach to this whole habit thing?
That's where systems come in. You see, Clear's argument is that goals are about the end game, right? They're those big picture things you're aiming for, like, I want to write a book or I want to run a marathon.
Yeah, those big dreams we all have.
Exactly. But systems, those are the processes you put in place, the nuts and bolts that actually get you there. It's about the daily grind, the small, consistent actions that move you closer to those big goals.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So instead of just fixating on the goal itself, which can feel overwhelming, sometimes you focus on building a system, a kind of roadmap to get you there.
You're catching on. It's like, imagine you're trying to build a house, right? You wouldn't just show up to a lumber yard with a picture of a beautiful mansion and expect it to magically appear.
You need a plan, blueprints, materials, a construction crew.
Exactly. And that's what a system is. It's the blueprint for your goals. It's about breaking down those big ambitions into smaller, more manageable steps, those daily habits that over time build upon each other.
So give me a concrete example of this whole system versus goals thing.
Okay, let's say your goal is to write a novel. That's fantastic. But it can also feel pretty daunting, right? Where do you even begin?
Yeah, it's easy to get overwhelmed before you even start.
Exactly. But what if instead of focusing on the daunting task of writing an entire novel, you focused on building a system around writing?
Like what kind of system?
Well, it could be something as simple as committing to writing for 30 minutes every day, no matter what. Even if you only manage a few sentences, some days, the point is you're showing up consistently.
You're building that habit.
Precisely. And over time, those 30 minutes, those seemingly small efforts, they add up. You might be surprised how much you can accomplish when you make consistency your priority.
It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. Every word you write, every step you take, it moves you closer to that ultimate goal. And here's the beauty of systems. Even if you stumble on any given day, even if you miss a day of writing, or you're not feeling particularly inspired.
Life happens.
Exactly. But with system in place, you're less likely to completely fall off track. It's like having those guardrails on a bowling alley.
To keep you out of the gutter.
You got it. Systems provide that structure, that support that helps you stay the course, even when things get tough.
This is making me realize that I've often been guilty of being all about the goal without really thinking about the systems I need to achieve it.
And it's a common trap. We get so focused on the finish line, on achieving that big goal, that we neglect the importance of the journey, the daily grind that ultimately gets us there.
So how do we shift our thinking? How do we become more system-oriented?
It starts with identifying those small daily actions, those atomic habits that are aligned with your goals. It's about creating a roadmap, a set of routines and rituals that will support you on your journey.
So instead of focusing on the outcome, which is often outside our control, we focus on the process, the things we can control.
Exactly. And as you consistently engage in those small positive actions, those 1% improvements, they start to compound, creating a ripple effect that propels you toward your goals.
It's like we're building momentum one small win at a time.
Exactly. And as you experience those small wins, it creates this positive feedback loop. You feel good about the progress you're making, which fuels your motivation to keep going.
It's like those small wins, they become self-perpetuating.
Precisely. Success breeds success. And before you know it, you've climbed that mountain, you've achieved that goal that once seemed so daunting.
This has been eye-opening. I'm walking away with a whole new perspective on how to create positive, lasting change in my life.
Remember, it's not about those grand gestures, those overnight transformations. It's about the power of tiny, consistent actions. It's about showing up day after day and trusting the process.
Small changes consistently applied can lead to remarkable results. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of atomic habits. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, remember, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So what systems will you build today?
What a powerful question to ponder. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.